I freaking love this bike. These roads may not seem like much on camera, but with a small bike like this that's got no rear suspension, it can beat you up pretty good. If anybody's considering getting into trail riding, I'd definitely start off with this Megamoto 212. I love the availability of having front suspension and front and rear hydraulic disc brakes. That's quite handy when you're coming down off these mountain steep grades, and a back tire doesn't really do much when it locks up. So the front brake really helps moderate the speed when you're slowing down. The main reason why I went with this bike is I like the price that it was on Go Power Sports. You get a TAV2 30 series torque converter, front and rear hydraulic disc brakes. All you got to do is just slap an engine in it. That's a pretty bang up deal for 600 bucks and a $200 224. I'm quite happy with the results. I'm a big fan of the frame, the design of the frame. It's quite thick, husky, muscular. I like calling it a wombat because it's like a small, muscular, little aggressive creature. It just loves to eat this shit up. I was originally going to purchase a Coleman, the I think 200EX. It's the orange and white one. The lines on that bike look amazing. The color scheme, amazing. But I don't like the single rear drum brake, which is, in my opinion, trash unless you're just riding it around, just putting it around. And it doesn't seem as beefy as this frame. This frame seems very well put together, very well thought out. And I like how it came from Go Power Sports. I do like the look of the Colemans, and I love the open frame to the Colemans, where you can add pretty much any modification without having to go with specialized exhaust or an intake or, you know, stuff like that. But for the price, I cannot justify spending, you know, $600 to $800 on a bike that's not going to perform as well as this one. I haven't had an issue with this torque converter whatsoever. I bought a new belt planning on changing it out because I thought it would wear out fast. I've went on 8 to 9 rides with this thing, like all at least 20-mile rides. That Pikes Peak loop was at least, you know, 14 miles of steep grade, wide open throttle, no wide open throttle, getting splashed on, getting wet, getting mud on it, and this thing just takes it. It does not give a shit. You lay it over, stand it back up, and it just keeps going. The Coleman bikes are great, don't get me wrong, but I'm not a big fan of drum brakes, and I'm not a big fan of single brakes on mini bikes. I know that's typical, but you can get this fork setup for around 80 bucks that allows you to put another $60 brake caliper set on there. So it's a little spendy, but it's well worth it. Why did I go with the 224? Yes, I do know I am plagued with the plastic nylon cam gear in these, but this is still a straight valve. This is not a Hemi. So I can do what I did to my last 196cc, shave the head, port the intake and valves quite large, some new valve springs. I'll throw a new cam and maybe a rod and flywheel on there and see how much ponies we get out of this. Now, a lot of people say that the 212 Ghost is a great bang for its buck. It makes a lot of horsepower out of box, and you know, it's the best engine you can throw in a mini bike. Personally, it depends on what you're doing with the mini bike. If you like building engines and making high compression, high horsepower little demons, a straight valve is going to be in your alley because you have more meat to port the intake and exhaust. You have more meat on that head to remove so more air can flow in and out of that engine. With a Hemi, those valves are at an angle. Yes, the ports on a Hemi do flow a lot better than the ports on a straight valve. The valves are at an angle, so the air doesn't have to bend as much going in and out of the engine. With a straight valve, there's pretty much a 90-degree angle that the air has to come in and out, and there's some obvious casting marks that do leave some turbulence, hinder some horsepower as well. That being said, $300 for no gas tank and no exhaust. Then Harbor Freight wants you to pay another $150 for all that. It's more cost effective, and you can do a lot more with a straight valve versus a Hemi. The Hemis will performs slightly better out of the box, but even the Ghost 212cc doesn't come with a VM22. It comes with a smaller carburetor on it. Yes, it's got fancy ignition. I think it's got some valve stuff done to it, but that's practically as far as you can go with that engine. Not only is there less room to port the intake and exhaust, but there's also less clearance between the piston and the valves. So it's not like you can throw a hot 265 or a fire 265 in there and call it a day. It's not that simple. Hey, whatever works, man. If it works, more power to you. But anyway, that's my 2 cents on the engine and the bike that I went with. I ride pretty hard, and I want the bike and engine to reflect how I ride. So this thing produces pretty good torque for a stock engine. Adding a stage 1 gives it a little more boost, but definitely going to add a new air filter kit on this. I don't think a 420 would fit in here. Imagine that, the last 3 rides, my car's been leaking fuel. Thanks for watching, and as always, send it.